What do they have it when it's in the front of a car? What is it, your winch?
Yeah, the winch, yeah.
When you try to winch with barbed wire my hands and feet, I'm like, dude, we're good here. I'll shoot myself. Just leave me alone.
Right.
But I still couldn't jump into the fountain. I couldn't do that.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I'm one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Peekaboo.
And each week, we take a look back in time to decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie takes to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV. We review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all information and past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, and our YouTube channel, where we play video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing tonight?
So, Gene, when we started the podcast, it was our mission statement was to go back to the 80s and 90s and see how those films held up. As we're going on to now, like close to year 10, we've somewhere along the lines, we're starting to let some newer films bleed in, which I think is good. The audiences seem to enjoy it. They've commissioned some, and we've been very selective with the films that we've allowed in. Tonight's film will be number 12 out of almost 500 films that we've done. So it is a very selective number of films. So that's why we were excited for our repeat commissioner, Chris D., who wrote in, and he's doing tonight and next week's. But for tonight, he wanted us to go back to the year 2000 and review the action thriller, The Way of the Gun.
And with the 12th 2000s commission, Chris wrote in and said, "Hey, Shat crew, I thought a great follow-up to Thief would be another James Caan movie, Way of the Gun. He's a minor character, but his performance is phenomenal. Caan, like Ryan Phillippe, Benicio del Toro, and everyone in the entire cast is imperfect, and it shows, but I really love watching the plot unfold, the acting, and the gunplay. It's a little slower than most would like, but check it out. Let me know your thoughts." Maybe it's a small number of people who love this movie, but I'm definitely among them. I understand the pacing is a little slow, but I love the film noir aspect of it, and I think the acting is outstanding throughout. From the opening scene where Mr. Parker offers to fuck start Sarah Silverman's head, you realize this is not your average crime drama. I've always thought of it as what Tarantino would make if he was less interested in being edgy and more interested in drama. Ryan Phillippe, Benicio del Toro, James Caan give outstanding performances, which I honestly believe should have been recognized. Maybe they were overlooked, or maybe the Academy realized you could never trust the bag man. Either way, for me, it's a solid 1.25 wipes, but I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Thanks again for all the great work, guys. Chris.
So, Gene, when we have repeat commissioners and some of our longtime supporters, and they do a few commissions, I almost feel like we are psychiatrists or we're psychologists, where we start to look into, and you can see into the soul, the layer underneath what they may write, what they may say, the voice messages, by what they're commissioning. So Chris, this I think is his 4th film, right? And if we look at the movies he's done, there's a clear theme. These are all character-driven films. They're all flawed people making questionable decisions. Tonight's Way of the Gun, it's messy. We have criminals. Next week, fucking spoiler alert, I'm going to say it. I'm not going to say the name of the film, but it's about ambition. It's about corruption. Then he did Thief, which was another James Caan movie, which we loved. It's about the criminal code. Sideways, a little different, but it's still two dudes. It's a study of guys spiraling through life. There's never a clean hero. There's never a good guy. is none of that. So these movies that we review and the people who are commissioning them, it tells a lot, because these characters, these are all people going through life, whether they're criminals, wine connoisseurs, maybe philandering actors, and trying to justify their behavior. So maybe Chris is somehow subliminally trying to justify the things he's done, because I feel these are very intentional tastes. So, Gene, do you think this is telling us more about the movies he likes or more about the man, Christopher?
Well, now that you've revealed a pattern that I didn't recognize in Chris's commissions, I realized how off the mark I was when we gifted him as a thank you Invictus, because Invictus does not fall into the pattern of these films. And I just assumed because he's a rugby guy, he would really enjoy it. But yeah, I'm seeing something develop here. And there are parallels between Chris and the King Bee, because these are all films that the King Bee likes as well. And so if I'm to infer anything about Chris as a person, he's like the more put together, more outgoing, perhaps ambitious version of the King Bee, or the one who the cards fell right for. Because again, he is an entrepreneur, own wine business, traveler, adventurer, and I consider both of them friends.
Well, maybe that's the case. Maybe they're both sides of the single coin.
Oh.
If life had gone a little different way, King Bee could be Christopher. Christopher could be King Bee. It shows you. Maybe that's the films. It's the decisions you make in life.
Yeah, the King Bee does have an outstanding rugby body. He could have been a contender.
He could have been.
The Way of the Gun, excellent pick, Chris. It really kicked off what I'd call the third phase of my life. Phase one, I was born, I was a kid. I loved America and the New York football giants, and I experienced my world through what my mom watched and listened to. You look at my scrapbooks from the time, the posters on my wall. It was sports heroes, the American flag, Duran Duran, Cyndi Lauper. Then I kind of got, as teens do, into my own thing. I became a goth teen who wanted capes and fangs, and I no longer took my cultural cues from my mom. I was looking up to the elder goths at the clubs for who I would be. That developed into phase three, right around 2000. And phase three was expanding that dark interest that I had in the macabre and in the twisted into the world immediately around me, right? I wasn't thinking of Europe. I wasn't thinking of London after midnight. I was thinking of Arizona, the Sonoran Desert, Mexico. That's all a direct product of The Way of the Gun. I saw this movie and it changed what I saw as the darkness around me. Some people in this era, 1999, 2000, they got obsessed with Boondock Saints as the millennium rolled over. The King Bee and I, we got obsessed with The Way of the Gun, and it's been an obsession ever since.
I look back and consider myself lucky to be where I am, to have a stable life, have a wife, have a child. How
It's
lucky.
the best. It's the fucking best.
I think of like the times I've talked about where I've run afoul of the law. My time going to Canada with the mushrooms in my headlights. I could have easily gone the wrong way. I could have gotten in. How many times I drove drunk? How many times I was in a car with a drunk driver? How many times my freshman year when I had roommates who wanted to break into an electronics store in town? They did it. I didn't go. They got away with it, but maybe they would have gotten caught if I was there. Those little decisions that you make in your life, how you could turn out completely different. And maybe that's what Christopher's getting to. There's a little bit of Christopher and King Bee in us all. And it's a lot that like what we can do. And I see it with Emma, that she has her like her own uniqueness. And you and I as fathers and parents can only steer them in a direction and hope that they stay within that safe zone and come out the other side.
The Way of the Gun is a 2000 neo-Western action thriller written by Christopher McQuarrie in his directorial debut. It's about two low-level criminals, played by Ryan Phillippe and Benicio del Toro, who kidnap a pregnant woman, played by Juliet Lewis, only to find themselves facing a more complex and dangerous situation than they first realized. Taye Diggs, Nikki Katt, Scott Wilson, and James Caan play supporting roles. The film was a minor commercial success, grossing $13 million against a production budget of $8.5 million. The critical reception was mixed, with some critics praising the acting, direction, and action sequences, but lamenting the limits of the script, the pacing, and character development. Let's hit the trailer.
What would you say qualifies you as a donor?
I would say I am a fairly good-looking man, physically fit, stable.
I've never killed a man.
I beg your pardon?
It's just one of those days. It's all about the he said, she said.
For the record, I'll call myself Mr. Parker. My associate will be Mr. Longbow. At some point, it became clear to us that our path had been chosen and we had nothing to offer the world. So we stepped off the path and went looking for the fortune that we knew was looking for us.
It's just one of those days.
And here was the thing. The longest distance between 2 points is a kidnapper and his money. But we were through jerking around.
What I heard was you ready to put a woman's life at risk for money.
Not money. $15 million.
$15 million.
$15 million.
You are here because you were for sale, and you will do as you are.
So, are you the brains of the operation?
To tell you the truth, I don't think this is a brains kind of operation.
Parker and Longbaugh are petty criminals who overhear a telephone conversation at a sperm clinic detailing a $1 million payment to a surrogate mother. They kidnap the pregnant woman, Robin, resulting in a shootout with her bodyguards, Jeffers and O'Bex, who are arrested. Longbaugh summons Robin's gynecologist, Dr. Alan Painter, to a truck stop to examine her, and Painter explains that Robin is carrying the child of money launderer Hale Chittick and his wife, Francesca. Big D, pacing has been the word of the day with this film, but another criticism that The Way the Gun gets is the opening scene being out of place. Now, it is truly a neo-Western, but you get this opening scene that feels more like something out of like American Pie. It's a heist movie, but they open with a young Sarah Silverman talking shit to our main characters at a line outside of a club. In response, they start a fight. They bust her nose, they smash another woman's foot, and it leads to this mob like kicking their asses while they're giggling. It's very much a page out of Fight Club. And it doesn't make sense unless, I guess, you're a person who likes to have fun and you're like, I don't give a fuck. It's funny to watch. Because it's funny, it's exciting, it shows you that anything goes in this movie. And I don't think it's a misstep. I really enjoyed it. You get this line from Sarah Silverman. She's saying, you're going to wish you never fucking got up this morning, asshole, because my boyfriend's going to fuck you up. And after that, well, he's fucking up your gay uncle over there. I'm going to fucking cut off your cock and mail it to your mother. And she wraps it up with this non sequitur of, you like to fuck baby heads?
Yeah.
You like to fuck boys? He's going to fuck you in the ass. How do you like that? He's not even gay, but he'll do it just to fuck.
Yeah. What the fuck? Dude, anybody who's listened to the podcast, you know that Vanessa, she's an Easter bunny hopping through the fields of life. She is an innocent, caring, loving, good person beyond anything I don't know how I got her, right? She doesn't like profanity. She's never done any drugs. She does the right thing because it's the right thing to do. She stays extra hours. She's honest. She's like to a fault, right?
Yeah.
She doesn't like profanity. She doesn't like listening to the podcast because of the F-bombs and the language.
Sorry, Vanessa.
She's on the couch and she's like, oh, I'm just going to sit here with you while you watch your film. I'm like, really? I'm like, you think that's a good idea here? She's like, yeah, I'm just going to sit on the couch and try to rest. It opens up with, hey, fucker. Hey, gay boy. Come here. I'm going to fuck you in your eye. Oh, I'm going to fuck you in your ass. Oh, you don't like it? I'm going to fuck you. And I'm looking at her and she's like, what is this? And the scene was so funny. I rolled it back. I had to watch it like 3 times. She's like, what is this movie about? But it is so good because it just opens up. It's not pretending to be anything. You know, I knew it was a heist movie. I'm thinking maybe this is part of their plan. They're going to cause a distraction. There's going to be somebody go in the back. They're going to rob this bar. Maybe it's a whole ploy to get information to pick up. It's not. This is just them being assholes and being themselves. These guys, right away you see who it is. There's no buildup. There's no easing into it. Boom, it's done. These guys aren't charming. They're just 2 best friends going through life. They're kind of awful. You know, the way they talk to each other, they're aggressive. They just wanted to fuck with this group of people. We don't know why. That's not important. It doesn't matter. But you know it's going to be a fun ride. You go from this ass kicking them left bloody on the floor, bam, to the intro, and they're on the road. I mean, but you know how I feel about people needing to be punched in the face. Sarah Silverman, I think, this character that she plays needed a good punch in the face, because you heard what she immediately says. After she gets bloodied, she turns to the boyfriend and goes, "Why did you start this fight?" She needed that punch.
I want to preface this by saying that Sarah Silverman, particularly young Sarah Silverman, is a work of art. She's an incredibly beautiful and charming woman. But yeah, it was very satisfying after her rant to watch her get socked in the face. And there's a story behind this where I think when they did like the bonus features or whatever on the Way the Gun DVD, where McQuarrie talks about like how this is a conversation he's had of, if you are going to get in a fight or whatever, like what's the move? And he's like, oh, well, if you know you're going to get your ass kicked, you punch the dude's girlfriend. And the reason why is that even if you get your ass kicked, he's got to look at her for the next week with her face all fucked up. And then everybody who sees them is going to see a guy with a girlfriend with a broken nose or a black eye.
And she's going to be pissed off.
Yeah.
There's no way he goes home that night and has like crazy sex with his girlfriend thinking, I beat up these guys. Ha ha, I won.
Yeah, he's not fucking a baby head.
Dude, what about that foot stomp? You train for that with mixed martial arts. I think the foot stomp is underestimated, just like shin kicks or elbows. When they foot stomps that other chick, her day is ruined in those beautiful shoes. You know, her fucking toes are probably shattered.
Oh, there's so many small bones in the foot. That's gone.
So many small bones. And it doesn't matter. They're on the ground. They're laughing. And you also, besides, you get to know that this is just going to be a runaway story for 2 hours, right? It sums up this entire movie immediately. And there's one line that comes a little bit later. You've kind of said it here, that they're going to do a kidnapping. They don't plan shit. They just stumble into it. Hey, the car is working. The car breaks. We get a new car. Hey, we're going to donate sperm, make some money. Hey, every opportunity, right? So later on, when they get involved in the kidnapping, and Sarno, who's the senior bag man, he asks Del Toro, he says, you know, are you the brains of this outfit or is it he? And Del Toro, great line, turns around and says, well, you know, tell you the truth, I don't think the brains of the operation is kind of our thing. There is no mastermind here. These guys, they're barely holding it together. Don't expect this to be Ocean's 12 or Ocean's 2. They're not going to blow you away with their plan. They're just going to stumble through life. And if they can somehow survive for 2 hours, it's great, because they're trying to do this ransom call. They're immediately exposed to themselves. They're found right away. They're staying in the same location. There's no plans. There's no layer. There's no strategy. They have no tactical skill. They can't fight. They don't seem to have any special skills that would make them a successful criminal. There's no tactical skills. It's almost a surprise they've made it this far. Do you think it works better because they're not everymen, but because they're incompetent as opposed to what we normally see? If you think back to The Thief, the last time that we saw James Caan, where he was the best, he was the professional. Do you prefer this, where you have bumbling idiot like safe men, or the other way where you have the truly competent professional thief?
It's important to note, dear listener, if you haven't seen this movie, which I recently discovered a lot of people haven't, that these aren't like zoinks, like pratfall, like silly men.
Yeah, they're not dumb.
It's not quick change. Okay, they're not dumb
no,
silly. No. But the fact is, like, they preface it with that fight outside the club, that these guys are just kind of like, hey, we roll with the punches, come what may. We see an opportunity, we go for it. We don't really think it through. And that's fine until they encounter actual professionals, right? And we get this whole theme crystallized in the final shootout. They've got money bags in a courtyard surrounded by gunmen. Parker and Longbaugh know that there's always free cheese in the mousetrap. They could try to get away, but they got no better plan. This is the closest in their lives they will ever be to $15 million. And there's a reason in the movie that they, through the narrator, they adopt the real names of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, right? Like Parker and Longbaugh, that's Butch and Sundance is real names. They know they're doomed. It's just a matter of how long can you pull that thread out before it ends.
Yeah, if they see an opportunity, they're going to take it. And also, people, we've just listed horrible things they've done. They've busted open a couple women's noses, their feet. They're stealing, they're shooting. They don't intentionally kill when they don't have to. There's a couple times where they have people at gunpoint where they could shoot them in the face. They don't want to murder. They're just trying to, like you said, Gene, find that piece of cheese. And when you have somebody who's like, they're ambiguous. There's no good, there's no bad, there's no right, there's no hero, there's no growth. There's just trying to stumble through life, and we're along the ride.
Yeah, if you think of this plan, if you were just kidnapping any pregnant woman for a ransom, right? It's not a bad plan. If it's just an average person, because you go south of the border, now you can't get the cops to get you, whatever. And it's like they would probably put a reasonable ransom amount, $50,000, $100,000, and call it a day, right? But when they find out that it's Chittick's money, it's like, oh fuck, we got to go for 15 million, right? It changes the dynamics. They're making it up as they go.
Yeah, and I love that the professionals always call. They're like, you don't know whose child this is that you just kidnapped,
right?
And they're like, no, we don't. How did you get here not knowing?
Or the fact, as you mentioned, you just talked to the bagman and you're still staying put. You're not leaving immediately. They know where you are. What are you doing? Jeffers and O'Bex are bailed out by Chittick's right-hand man, Joe Sarno, and Painter is revealed to be Chittick's son. The kidnappers call from a motel south of the Mexican border, demanding that Chittick send the doctor to deliver a $15 million ransom and induce labor. Francesca is having an affair with Jeffers and overhears his and O'Beck's plan to recover the baby but kill the kidnappers, plus Robin and Painter keeping the money for themselves. Big D, I've seen this movie dozens of times. And when I was younger, I was just excited about the cool script and the cool dudes and the cool guns. And I also was reading about a book a week for fun. Come with me back in the time machine, guys, the year 2000, like the internet was kind of nascent. We didn't spend a lot of time there. Books were still kind of a thing. College campus, it was cool to read. And sadly, since then, in the 26 years since then, the internet has fucking pickled my brain. I can barely manage about 10 pages a day now in an actual book, and that's pushing it. Anyway, I think at the time in 2000, being immersed in the college lifestyle and literature, it blinded me to just how much like a novel the way the gun behaves, right? I was just looking at it as a movie, but now you see it as a great departure from the average film. The metaphors in the game of hearts that they're playing in the motel, Parker, Longbaugh, and Robin, the overly intertwined character relationships, right? Everybody in this movie is somebody's dad or somebody's mom or somebody's lover or somebody's best friend or a combination of those things. And it's a story that if you read it in a novel, because you see that they're trying to make points and symbolize things and have metaphors, like you could read that and not think twice. But as a movie, I think it can feel odd if you're not in the mindset. If you're watching it as a novel, it makes perfect sense. But I think that outside of that, for the average viewer, I think this is where we hit the first bump in the road.
You see, but I think this is why doing the podcast with you, and hopefully people who listen to it, you'll get a new perspective. So today I was texting you. We don't read notes before we record, so we usually come into it a little bit blind. So I was texting you something and you're like, don't put it in the text, put it in a Trello. I don't want to read this twice. I don't want. And then I was commenting about how some of the dialogue was cheesy. They say like, a list is only things you haven't been able to finish.
Then you didn't put it in the notes.
Because it wasn't important, because this is the whole point I'm getting to.
Okay.
If you could listen to me for a second, you wrote, what's the last time you read a novel? And I was like, I don't know. So you got me thinking about this being based on a novel.
Yeah.
And a lot of it started to make sense, that the choices they're making artistically are like a reader of the novel creating this imagery in their head. So I was like, oh, okay. I'm glad Gene yelled at me because now I'm seeing some of the novel's input.
There were no exclamation marks in that text.
I've been with you for 10 years. I can read them without them on the screen. I can. It's as if like there was a smell sensor or like a little sound where I can hear you seething sometimes.
No, there was a question mark at the end. Just when's the last time you read a novel? Friend.
Yeah. Followed by, I don't like to read things twice.
I do not like to read things
Put
twice.
this into the notes. Right?
Put it in the notes.
Okay, but as we get to a scene here, it's the big shootout. So they've stumbled into this kidnapping at the clinic, and they're in the doctor's office. There's a handoff, and there's a big standoff where you don't know who's going to get shot. You don't know if they're going to actually get the kidnapping done that time with Robin, or Robin's going to escape. They go out the door, and there is a huge like Heat style gun battle. It's crazy. You hear people screaming, you hear gunshots, you hear people ordering each other to move around. You're hearing like windows shatter, cars get hit. And you're knowing that this is going on, but they don't show it to us. They intentionally keep us in the hallway, following Robin, deciding whether or not to stay in the elevator. Does she get out? What choice is she going to make? Then she's slowly shuffling down the hallway, pregnant, having a difficult, she may be like inducing herself into an early birth. And it's tense, and they don't show us any of it. We open up the door, and it's boom, it's there, but we didn't see any of it happen. I think it's a bold choice, but to me, it's as if we were reading the chapter where Robin is walking through her head what she's going to do and her decisions.
It's also a clever bit of misdirection because these guys fucked up their kidnapping by not doing the most basic research. As you mentioned, Big D, question one when you're doing kidnapping is, who are you kidnapping? They don't know. They know she's worth $1 million, but they don't know anything other than that. So they don't know necessarily that she's going to have bodyguards. That's the first surprise. And they don't know if the bodyguard's priority is her or the baby. So when we see the bodyguards pull their guns and point them at Robin, suddenly you see this moment of realization where Parker and Longbaugh, their whole plan has shit the bed. They don't know what the fuck, and they just want to get the fuck out of there, right? So they do their move thing. They cover each other, which doesn't make any sense because they're not using cover at all. So you're actually taking one gun out of the equation. It's really not that smart. But anyway, they get out of there. And you think, okay, the movie's not over. So clearly they pull off a kidnapping at some point. Are they going to kidnap her later? Do they do another try at it? Or maybe she makes a run for it because you can see she's not very happy. She's a little conflicted in this movie, right? Maybe she makes a run for it and then she goes to them for help, right? Plot twist. But no, the movie flips it on you again and it turns into this unexpected off-screen bloodbath. And again, I keep bringing this word up, but it is true. I don't know where people got that this movie is slow or has weird pacing. It is very fun and it's active all the time.
Dude, but how do they even know this is the $1 million target? They could have just poached some random woman going in to meet her OBGYN. They don't know. And then you're thrown the additional loop that the bodyguards don't seem to protect her at all costs as if they think they will. He's actually pointing the gun at her stomach, basically tempting them, saying, hey, I don't care. This isn't what you think it is. So we're off to a start, Gene, like you said. And it's going pretty quick until we get possibly the slowest car chase that we've ever covered on the podcast. And for our British listeners who remember the slow Volvo chase through London in Nuns on the Run, it made that thing look like Fast and the Furious. That was like a 45-mile-an-hour romp through London. This, you're not going to outrun them, right? You got a pregnant woman screaming in the back seat. You've got a sedan with two armed, seemingly tactically proficient bodyguards, maybe ex-police, ex-military. You're not going to be able to escape them in that vehicle. So what they do is they flip the high-speed chase on its head. They're going so slow. They turn down these alleyways, and it's really confined, and they're letting the car roll. They're getting out of the car, taking positions. The two bodyguards come out, and it's very tense, and it's creeping forward with the doors opened, and you don't know when it's going to turn into something violent, something fast. And it just showed we don't need to have high-speed Smokey and the Bandits or used cars where guys are going 90 miles an hour. This thing was as tense, and they were not even probably going 20 miles an hour.
You probably already know this, but in the making of The Way of the Gun, they had a Navy SEAL advise on some of these scenes. And it was his goal in filming these scenes and designing these scenes to illustrate how a car can be more than a getaway vehicle. As you mentioned, Big D, every time we watch a movie, the car is going as fast as possible, being reckless, and that's supposed to be the excitement, right? But this SEAL said, cars also make for great mobile cover, and they create a stable shooting platform for the passenger, right? If you're not the guy with his hands on the wheel. But the key is you got to stay behind the engine block, right? And this is the thing we don't see normally. When people use cars for cover, and I'm doing that in air quotes, in movies, they're hiding behind like the trunk or behind a door. And that's okay for concealment, right? They can't see exactly where you are, but it's shit for cover. Bullets are going to rip, right through there. And so what we get here is what it would really look like if you were trying to continue to move, but also use that engine block for cover. You got to keep behind the engine block. You can use your feet to kind of gauge. It's an automatic vehicle, right? So you have it in drive, but you don't want to be up where you can get shot. So you're staying low, and you got to use your foot to kind of gauge that pace. I thought it was a very cool, very memorable scene. You're curious about what it is they're pulling off. And then you combine that with Benicio del Toro and Ryan Phillippe jumping out of their car and going into the building, and then jumping out of the building and back into the car. It's a little Scooby-Doo action. I loved it.
Yeah, and you know at some point you're going to turn a corner and they're going to come out at you. And yes, people, do not act like, when you talk about Gene hiding behind like a regular door or a trunk lid or a hood. You remember Predator 2?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember Danny Glover?
Shitting his pants?
No, Danny Glover driving.
Oh,
using like the open door and kind of leaning out.
Don't do that.
There was Mike Harrigan, Lieutenant Mike Harrigan. Don't do that, people. You're going to get yourself killed. But at least they have the pregnant human shield behind them.
Always
so that works better than an engine block. If you have a hostage pregnant woman, that'll work too.
Sarno approaches Longbaugh as Chittick's bagman, and Longbaugh declines $1 million to simply walk away. But he joins Sarno for a cup of coffee. They commiserate about the state of their underworld professions and guardedly go their separate ways. But Sarno leaves his associate Abner to watch the kidnappers. Robin reveals to Parker and Longbaugh that Francesca's embryo failed to implant, and Painter is actually the father of her child. Now listen. We did Natural Born Killers on Shat the Movies, and it got me thinking that maybe I was a little bit harsh. Maybe I was wrong about Juliette Lewis's acting abilities. She's quite charming in that movie. But The Way of the Gun reminded me just how much this woman does not belong in the pictures. Okay. She is supposed to be in this movie. It's a pretty big role. She's got to be this figure that interrupts the depravity of everybody involved. It's got to get Parker and Longbaugh snapped out of their scheming. It's got to get all the other people in her orbit who are awful to act a little bit better or reconsider their behavior. But I swear to God, there are scenes in this movie where I swear it. I can see her reading from cue cards that are just off camera. And I did this mental exercise where I said, there is not a single star of Juliette Lewis's generation that would be worse for this role. Okay. You could put in Julia Roberts. It works. You could put in Angelina Jolie. It works surprisingly well. You could put in fucking older Nicole Kidman, Jessica Alba, Kirsten Dunst. Literally anybody in 2000 would have been an improvement over Juliette Lewis.
You could put anyone. And I feel bad for saying that. I think I don't want to joke about the mentally disabled, but her characters always seem like they've either undergone some serious trauma or haven't fully developed. If you think back, all of them, we have Dusk Till Dawn. She's like that sheltered daughter of a religious, like the reverend. You go back to even Cape Fear.
Yeah.
She seems a bit slow. I feel bad for saying it, but she does.
But then I wonder, I'm like, is it actually in the writing or is it just her? Like, is there anything in the script that indicates that this person that, took a fall on her head?
No. And here's the reason for it. She, right out of the chute, her first true breakout was in 92 with Cape Fear. Up until then, she had done like TV series like I Married Dora, The Facts of Life, Meet the Hollowheads, The Running Kids. Then she was in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Oh.
Again, she's a stunted, not fully developed adult woman, right? She was in The Wonder Years. She was in something called like Crooked Hearts. Then she hits Cape Fear. So now she gets a nomination for an Academy Award, doesn't win it. And she's thinking, this is what people want to see. This is what I'm going to do. So most of her roles are like that. And then I thought, how did she actually get into Hollywood? She had a head start. Her dad, Jeffrey Lewis, was a working actor in Hollywood. She grew up around the industry. She had access to most people that other actors don't. So she started getting roles young. Cape Fear she got because of the connections. If she wasn't an industry kid, like a Nepo baby, there is no way she is becoming the actress she is today and wouldn't have gotten those roles. But yeah, you could intertwine them all. They're the same person.
I mentioned this coffee scene between Longbaugh and Sarno, and it's a great scene. It's a fun scene. Watching the two of them, like each knowing that the other one might be armed and like feeling each other out, but then sitting down for a cup of coffee. It's like that classic moment where two guys from two opposite trenches get together on Christmas and have a meal, and then they got to go back to their trenches. You know, I really love moments like this in film, and there are quite a few of them, but they never get old for me, where it's like the two guys having a conversation, realizing they're probably a lot alike. They'd probably like each other in another world. But at the same time, like one of them is going to end up killing the other one eventually. And I don't want to sacrifice that scene, but I do have some qualms with the way it fits into the larger plot, because Sarno, I get he's a seasoned bagman and he doesn't want to yield any leverage by letting Parker and Longbaugh know that Robin is his daughter. By the way, listeners, Robin is his daughter. The pregnant lady, that's the bagman's daughter. Again, it's the way of the gun. But you get the coffee scene, and he acknowledges afterward to Abner that like they could take him out right now. Like they could take these two guys out, no problem, right? But he chooses to leave his pregnant daughter alone in a motel in Mexico with two armed strangers. And to me, that's a bit beyond belief, because logically they could take these guys out. They could call Chittick and they could be like, hey, problem solved. We got him. She's fine. We're coming home, right? Instead, he drags it out by saying, okay, Abner, you watch them at the motel. I'm going to go back. I'm going to travel back to Chittick and tell him what's going on. And I'm thinking, your daughter could be tortured. She could be subject to a dirty C-section where they just want to get the baby out and fuck her. They could rape her. Like, who knows what's going on in that room? And I'm like, the only logical explanation I have is that this is all one bigger plan for Sarno to get the money down to Mexico, and he's rolling the dice on his own kid. But that doesn't seem right.
Fuck no. There's no way. Men like Sarno and Abner, you don't leverage your daughter. The family, if you think back to Breaking Bad, you think back to Mike Ehrmantraut, right? Everything he did was to set up his daughter and his grandchild. The idea that this is a long play on $15 million is ridiculous. I just kept hoping that he would show his years of experience. He brags about being the old guy who's the survivor. Where was this last minute twist? Something where he actually saved her? Because what's happening to her is absolutely the worst case scenario. All those things you said, Gene, bloody, brothel bed, epidural, unsanitized hand, C-section, gunplay, rape, like it's his worst case scenario. So maybe he's just a shitty bagman.
I mean, well, you would think as Chittick's employee and also having his daughter being the carrier of Chittick's child, to Chittick's knowledge, like he would be the guy to take her to appointments, you know? Like if he's that fucking good. But I guess the bagman doesn't do that kind of work. Anyway, and before people write in and be like, no, what you don't get is that he didn't want to blow his cover. Like he knew that by letting them know that that's his daughter and make matters worse. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is we have established in this film that you got two guys who have no fucking idea what they're doing, and two guys in Abner and Sarno who are allegedly pros who could take them out at any time. It's supported by the dialogue. And yet they choose not to, whether it's out of loyalty to Chittick or whether it's out of, a play on $50 million, which Big D doesn't buy into. I don't necessarily buy that one either. It's just this weird swirl in the film that didn't really sit right with me. At the motel, Parker has second thoughts, but Robin seizes a shotgun and shoots at him. Mexican police arrive as Robin is confronted by Jeffers, Obex, Painter, and Abner. As the officers hold everyone at gunpoint, Parker and Longbaugh open fire from a nearby hilltop, killing the officers and wounding Obex. After Jeffers drives off with Painter and Robin, Parker and Longbaugh torture Obex to reveal that Jeffers has taken Robin to a Mexican brothel. Meanwhile, a mortally wounded Abner notifies Sarno of where they've gone.
So, Gene, this is a big cast. We've already talked about Juliette Lewis, not one of the best. Some of the cast is better than others. And, as we just talked, that the characters don't seem to be as proficient maybe as we should expect them to be. It also could be that the actors weren't up to the roles, because we're used to things like Breaking Bad or Ozark, or where the criminal mastermind is pretty capable. You know, the bad guys, the Mike Ehrmantraut, he can coordinate killing 15 people in jail. You know, there's a lot of things that they can do. Here, the performances are a little hit or miss. You've got James Caan, fantastic. Ty Diggs, maybe too pretty to come across as a competent bodyguard. You got Nikki Cat, whose Obex is a bit off for me. Even Scott Wilson as Chittick seems a bit too... he doesn't seem like the ruthless criminal that I wish he was. But for the main characters, they're the driver. Everybody remembers them. Performance-wise, I felt like there was a big difference between the two leads. You've got Parker, who's Ryan Phillippe. He feels like he's trying to shed the heartthrob image. You go back, he started out with like Cruel Intentions, I Know What You Did Last Summer. He was the pretty boy. He married Reese Witherspoon. I think at some point he was trying to transition from that and become a credible actor. So he's got facial hair that doesn't look like it's something that a true tough guy would have. He's putting on this tough exterior and he's trying to, hey, say faggot. Oh, what's wrong with faggot? It all seems like that kid wearing their dad's big jacket, trying to come across as something they're not, trying too hard. Then you got Longbow, which is like Benicio del Toro. He doesn't try. He just exists in the role. He's quiet. He's unpredictable. He's strange. That whole conversation when they're donating sperm, he says, I've never killed a man. Well, why would you ask that? Because I think it's an important question. This is something a natural, cold-blooded killer, that presence he has is so believable. But then you contrast that with the Ryan Phillippe trying to be so hard. Do you think that's written in there? Because I couldn't see these two men being partners and friends and ride or die. It's almost as if I wanted to see Ryan's character recast.
It's a terrific observation. And I do think it's intentional, but I wonder if Ryan Phillippe was in on it, like in on that intended dynamic. And if you notice, like going back to Sarah Silverman at the beginning of the movie, how she calls, Benicio del Toro, Ryan Phillippe's uncle, his gay uncle, right?
Oh, that's funny.
I think that there is supposed to be this relationship, but I don't know that Ryan Phillippe was in on it. And I'm not saying that Phillippe is a dumb guy, right? But if he was aware of how he'd end up looking on camera, you talk the facial hair, the way that he's talking, the way he carries himself, contrasted with Benicio del Toro's like effortless, simultaneous, cool, but menacing way of being. Like he's like a viper, right? If he knew about that and still pulled it off, he's a better actor than I thought, because he is just surfing this line between fragile kid and killer. And what I imagine is they told him, you're a killer, but he is a fragile kid. And so it looks like it. But if he knew it and was doing this balance intentionally, that's pretty impressive. And you see it when he shares his sandwich with Robin, but he's, as you mentioned, fucking with the interviewers at the sperm bank, or when he absolutely smokes dudes, like career professionals. He's smoking dudes in shootouts, but then he like pauses and he sees the sanctity and birth and it fucking rattles him, right? Mm-hmm. And there's these other moments, like he's the guy that ran for the bag. Like that's gutsy as fuck. You know there are guys out there trying to kill you, and you are running into the middle of a courtyard to get a bag that probably weighs about as much as you do. I know you're the master of accounting for how much cash weighs, but $15 million, it's a third of that, right? So $5 million in cash. It's a heavy fucking bag.
Yeah, and I think they intentionally put smaller bills so it wouldn't be super easy to transport it. There's probably also some heavy weights in their plates, but yeah, he was always on top of that as the heartthrob. He was like the sensitive boy.
Yeah.
He was the one who would sit down and talk to you. And I picture him going home every night and being like, I'm killing it. This is going to be my break. I know this is working.
You know what adds to that? My theory that he didn't fucking know is the fact that that's not his accent, right? He went with a Massachusetts accent of like somebody he'd heard talking because he thought it sounded right for the role. And I'm like, what's the most like I gotta act hard. It's either gonna be New York or Boston, right? Like that's the accent you're going for.
Dude, Richard Dreyfuss. You remember I talked about his mustache in Stakeout?
That is too far. Now you're being insulting.
No, I think Richard Dreyfuss is a tougher dude. I think
that's harsh, man.
Yeah, Richard Dreyfuss he was a tougher dude than you get Ryan here in this role.
Yeah, Richard Dreyfuss would have fucked Robin.
1,000%.
100%.
And then he would have had to try to
consensually.
Then they would have had to try to hide it from all the different factions, as they're like trying to sneak around. Is she your hostage? Yeah, is she your hostage? Is she your lover? What's going on? Who's the baby's real dad? But we talked about how like this is the worst case scenario that could happen to your daughter, right?
I would say, yeah.
You've got on top of the fact that let's just say he willingly knew he was going to pimp her out to be a surrogate for $2 million. That's fine to this criminal. But now we add hotel brothel, the room where she's having a really tough birth, right? And it flips. When you have gone through a childbirth, I think it makes it more real. Watching this before we had children, Gene, you'd be like, so what? You're on a bed, you got a doctor there. He's got a doctor bag with shots and things. You think it can't be that bad, right?
Buddy, I thought women were like fucking kangaroos. I thought it was a little pouch. They cut them open, it just falls out.
You think back in the old days with the cavemen, you just pop them out. You go back to work. You keep going like the old days. I didn't think it was going to be something like this. But the doctor, when you get James Caan, turns back up into the brothel, right? He finally finds her. He busts the door open and you see the doctor, gloves, like crazy mad scientist gloves on, blood everywhere. He's got his eye cut open. He's looking like he's run a marathon. He's sweaty. There's been a gun battle going on. And the doctor just looks at him and says, "It's under control. There's nothing you can do here." And I know as somebody who's been in a delivery room with a difficult birth that Emma was an emergency C-section. So I have lived this scene. I've lived the chaos of just cutting Vanessa open, of grabbing Emma out, of blood, shit, everything all over the place. And this was not in a Mexican brothel. So I'm watching this.
It's an Orlando brothel.
And I'm finding myself, no, it was Winnie Palmer, great hospital, great women's hospital. I recommend it highly. But I'm watching this and I'm like, oh my God, that she's not going to make it. That's going to be a staph infection. Oh, that's horrible. Even when they talk about doing the epidural, I'm like, you cannot do an epidural, hit the right spot in between the vertebrae and get in there in a dirty, filthy, cum-soaked Mexican like mattress. Gene, watching this now, because you've watched it multiple times.
Yeah.
As a father of a child who's been there for the birth of a real child, did this cause you more stress knowing how dangerous it was?
Buddy, fucking night and day. Childbirth, for those people who have not experienced the miracle that is childbirth, it is somehow simultaneously routine and yet incredibly risky. Like they're so passe about everything that's going to happen, but then also like they'll just throw out stats of like, yeah, and then you have to go for an emergency C-section and like who knows what's going to happen then. I have never been more afraid in my life, Big D, than I was during Sarah's pregnancy. And we didn't have what you guys had, right? We didn't have an emergency C-section. It was 7 hours from water breaking to labor, unmedicated, like everything just went bam, bam, bam. It was quick. I can't say it was painless, but it was definitely quick. And you can do all the classes. You can take all the vitamins. You can bring all the comfort items. You can tour the hospital ahead of time. We did that. You meet the doctors. Still, when labor starts, you as a man are absolutely helpless. And then you add to that C-section. That takes it to another level. And then you add to that filthy brothel at gunpoint, right? That is beyond a horror show. But I will say it was cathartic after seeing all that to see Painter give Jeffers a bullet to the throat. That was kind of beautiful.
Fuck, that room was a disaster. I can't even just get, I'm just picturing it again, but yes, awful.
As Jeffers forces Painter to perform a cesarean section to retrieve the baby, Parker and Longboss storm the brothel while Sarno arrives with his own men and stacks the ransom money in the courtyard outside. After Painter shoots Jeffers, Parker and Longbaugh decide Robin has suffered enough and they leave. Aware that the money is bait, they still charge headlong into an ambush and they kill all of Sarno's crew. Sarno shoots and cripples Parker and Longbaugh before an ambulance extracts Robin, Painter, their child, Sarno, and the money, leaving Parker and Longbaugh to die. Days later, Francesca reveals to her husband that she's pregnant. So I want to preface this comment by saying I love the gunplay in The Way of the Gun. I love that little twirl Del Toro does with the shotgun. I love when they're just unloading on that one guy that's hiding behind a pillar and there's just rounds all around him. And then he finally steps out and gets shot up. I love Abner playing like chief level solo Russian roulette with a pillowcase full of revolvers. It's all good fun, but I hope to God that we are meant to understand that Parker and Longbaugh are absolutely dog shit with firearms. I hope that's established in the lore of the Way of the Gun, because these guys have a scoped rifle from an elevated position. They get suppressed by a handgun. They take shotguns to shootouts. They know they're going to be extracting women. They know she's got bodyguards, and they're going to go into a shootout at range with shotguns. For those who don't know, by the way, shotgun, very low capacity, limited range, right? Mm-hmm. We know they have rifles because they bust them out later. Might have been a good time to do it then. They dump full mags into walls in the Mexican brothel. And despite the whole cool thing they do where one covers and the other one tells him he's moving and then he says, move. Despite all that communication, they cannot clear a single room in this movie without getting shot repeatedly. I have to believe, to keep my own sanity, I have to believe it's intentional.
No, it has to be. It's like I said before.
Okay.
It's these guys are not skilled. They're winging it. They shouldn't be tactically proficient because they haven't shown they can do anything else well, right? And it's for people who haven't watched this, the gunplay is similar. Do you remember in Pulp Fiction, the scene, the
hand cannon,
the cheeseburger royale, you know, where they go in the Kahuna burger, the big Kahuna burger, right?
Yes.
They go in to get the case, and Vincent and Jules are in there like, that's a tasty burger, and out comes the Jerry Seinfeld lookalike. That's what this is like. Every shot is hitting right next to somebody. They are painting the walls with bullets, and it's ridiculous. And I started thinking, okay, it's obvious this is intentional, but I was trying to think, what was the shot to hit ratio? I was thinking like video games in this. Like, what was, first of all, their kill ratio, but how many rounds? I know, and they have an infinite ammo glitch. Nobody loads. We see a couple times when it's a creative, like load the magazine with your mouth or load it like behind your back or trying to load it on the ground, but no traditional reloading. They fire, I think it's at least 400 rounds to every 3 rounds that hit somebody. The movie tries to be realistic, but it goes a bit too far.
I think they were having fun. And it is a bit of a misstep, actually, because you have them wearing body armor. And so it'd been an easy out to just be like, hey, they've got mags all over them, which would have been kind of cool, too, like if they're just loaded up with mags. But yeah, you're right. They are. And also, they brought a shit ton of handgun ammo, but no extra mags for the rifles. What the hell is going on here?
No, but I do love that Sarno, that motherfucker, he intentionally shoots them in the thighs.
Yeah.
Like every time he gets a chance, in case they're wearing body armor or he's going to miss, he's just pumping rounds into, and you're seeing arterial spray out of their legs. They're down. He's just shooting them in the meaty thighs. And it's rough. And we've had now this full-blown gun battle, right? Gene, this is the first time in 10 years of doing this podcast that I forgot about a traumatic scene. I completely forgot, people, about what happens, and I almost don't want to say it here because it might spoil it for you first-timers. This battle's going on now. They're shooting left and right, and now you've got finally Mr. Parker. He's going to make a mad dash to the center, looks like one of the local towns in Westworld, and he's going to jump into the center fountain, but there's no water. So he runs. He dives, and all you hear is the sound of broken glass and his scream, just in agony. And the camera cuts into him quickly. He rolls over, and people have been throwing bottles into this fountain for years. He has shards of glass in his forearms, and it's that feeling like the nails on the chalkboard, or when you feel it in your teeth. This scene, Gene. Did you remember it was coming? Did it affect you?
Yeah. Big D, if you gave me 40 years to forget this movie, the two things that will always stand out are Abner's pillowcase scene. I just think it's so funny because what is he doing? You think, by the way, if you haven't seen this movie before, you think that he's filling up this pillowcase with revolvers to go on some mission. And you're You're like, why would you have a bag of revolvers? That's stupid. And then you realize, no, he's just playing, like I said, advanced Russian roulette. And the other thing you remember is the glass in the fountain. And Ryan Phillippe, he's laying there. He's got the glass in his forearms, and he like gags. He's like, he like almost throws up from the pain. It's so good and so memorable. I can't believe you forgot that scene.
No, but as it was happening, I was always like, no. So here's my question for you. I got two things here. All Would you rather have somebody just shoot you point blank in the thigh, or you have to swan dive into that dry fountain with all the broken glass?
Oh, the glass, 100%.
I couldn't.
I know the glass is only going to be superficial wounds,
but you could make yourself do that. I couldn't get myself to jump in.
If somebody held a gun to my head and said jump in there, I would jump in there.
If I had like an ambulance there, I'm taking the shot in the leg. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
Mexican ambulance, and you don't know where the hospital is.
But sometimes the cartel, they got the best doctors.
By the way, I recently read a theory that people think the opening scene in The Way of the Gun is after the shootout. It's like it's not in chronological order. I don't buy that for a second. Those guys are dead.
These fucking
dudes
are
dead.
No, if you survive this ordeal, you're not fighting anyone. You're not causing problems.
You're only fighting people's girlfriends.
You're hiding off. But here's question number 2, Gene. I want to know how tough you are, because we get the scene where Obex is abducted, like he's the bodyguard, and they string him up, and instead of drawing and quartering him between horses, they have him up between trees with a winch.
Yeah.
If you have a secret, Gene, that could lead to your death, your family's death, how long do you hold out as I'm winching you between 2 trees?
I tell you immediately. First off, I don't give a fuck about Jeffers. I know you're going to kill me, but you're going to kill me either way.
Right.
There's no way I get out of that thing alive. No. I'm just going to tell you right off the bat.
I agree. The second you string me up,
I go, none of this was my fucking idea. Like, let me come with you. I'll help out.
I see that ratchet coming out, or whatever that is. That what do they have it when it's in the front of a car? What is it? Your winch?
Yeah, the winch. Yeah.
When you try to winch with barbed wire, my hands and feet, I'm like, dude, we're good here. I'll shoot myself. Just leave me alone.
Right.
But I still couldn't jump into the fountain. I couldn't do that.
What would be a funny thing to chart is our survival instinct, and then like compared to our age, because I also do the math, and I'm like, realistically, if things go really well, I got maybe 20, 30 years left. Okay. Right. Like, I'm not going to go sit through this for 20 years. Just fucking, let's go. Like, just on with it.
Yeah.
Shoot me. It's fine.
Totally.
Yeah. Also, these 2 guys ain't shooting anybody. Come on. You think they killed him?
Oh, I think I don't think he gave it up. I think they would have killed him. I think you have to at that point. They let him live once before, and it came back to haunt him.
Yeah, that's true.
You got it. Dude, why would you, again, if you let him live, you don't think he's going to come find you someday?
Maybe you poke his eyes out, cut his hands off.
Again, no.
Throw him in a fountain full of glass.
Not that I'm advocating for this, but if you get someone to the very edge of death and torturing them, just finish it.
Yeah.
It's the smart thing to do. You're going to probably get caught either way.
Fucking unforced error of the podcast.
Just finish him. Just do it.
All right, now is the time of the podcast to give our Shat score for The Way of the Gun. The Shat scores are our way of telling you how many wipes the movie takes to get a perspective. But 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It is a motive with a universal adapter on it. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster of a film. It's a day of reckoning that you won't live long enough to never forget. I'll go first, Big D. Subjectively, this is a near perfect movie. If you're asking me from an emotional perspective, from a Gene's pure enjoyment perspective, it's very, very close to 0 wipes. I could watch this movie 100 times and I would ask for more. But I objectively have to admit, and this is actually contrary to what Chris D said about Quentin Tarantino and trying to be edgy and make a drama. I think this movie really wants to be cool. I think it goes out of its way to try to be edgy, and it's really overwritten in parts. I didn't need Painter to be Chittick's son. I didn't need Jeffers to have an affair with Francesca. I didn't need the nasty business in Baltimore. Simplify the movie, calm down, and you got a flawless film. But none of those things I mentioned actually adds to the film. It's just unnecessary complication that you didn't have to do, and it just shows you're trying a little fucking too hard. So in my book, this is a great movie. One of the most entertaining movies I've ever seen. I will quote it. I will watch it again and again. but it's one wipe.
You're being very kind. I came into this, I was going to go like a 2 wipe or like 2.25, but in our conversation, I've come back a little bit. And part of it is because the Ryan Phillippe performance, I'm not a huge fan of, but Benicio del Toro for me, I could watch that man walk around being uncomfortable and strange. And the whole peekaboo, we didn't even talk about that, where Robin blows a hole in the door and he's like, peekaboo, and just hops back out. He's a believable psychopath. Or you have Jeffrey Lewis, who plays Abner. There's so many great characters, but for me, it's not perfect. Enjoyable, but I don't know that I would watch it again. You know, another.
Wait, that was Juliet Lewis's dad?
Yes, Abner.
What?
It's her dad.
He's so much more talented than she is. He's great.
And that's got to be the hardest thing for him, man. Can you believe that?
This is my idiot daughter. Please give her a job.
Yeah, listen, guys. Hey, she's kind of special.
She's an Academy Award
Hold
nominee.
on. I got to make sure that that has to be. It's got to be.
It has to be.
It has to be.
Fucking the coincidence.
It has to be. Oh my God. And can you imagine her? I got this job in the movie.
I don't think that's her actual accent.
It's not because of my daddy. Yeah, he's good. Let me just make sure. That's life and career, personal death. Let's see, family. I just got to make sure, because how many Jeffrey Lewises are there?
Probably lots. Huey Lewis, C.S. Lewis, Lewis Black,
Jeffrey Bond, Lewis, Television Soul, Robert. Yes, because he was in film roles along Clint Eastwood, Robert Redford. Yes, that is him.
I actually want to amend my statement earlier when I said there's 2 things I would remember about this movie. There's a third thing. There's a scene where Jeffrey Lewis to the Mexican police goes, "Es verdad?" I never will forget. "Es verdad?"
No, I like Better's where he's bleeding out in his car and he's like, "Do you mind? Can I do this alone? Do you mind like just leaving me alone?" So yeah, I think it's where it belongs.
All right, so that gives us an average wipe score of 1.375 wipes for The Way of the Gun.
So Gene, that now ties us in the 117 spot with a movie I mentioned, strangely enough, Used Cars and A Fish Called Wanda. Slightly better than Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, One Crazy Summer. Slightly worse than The Sure Thing, Office Space, and Lethal Weapon.
And guys, this is not taking a shot at McQuarrie, but like rookie directors, it could go one of 2 ways, right? They could fucking just nail it and then they never do anything good ever again. Or you can see that it's a work in progress, right? And in the sense, The Way of the Gun, like it has the hallmarks of a vision for a film that is very fun, but not the hindsight and the experience to really pull off a flawless film. I think that when you are a writer who is as creative as McQuarrie and you're also the director, you don't have that friction that would cause you to maybe cut some parts out and be like, hey, I see what you wrote here. That's cool. But like, I can't pull that off in a film and make it slick and effective. So it's understandable. But I will say, knowing now that a lot of people have not seen this movie, watch it. It's very worthwhile. Easy to find on streaming services. And it's a very good time. Speaking of fantastic films, Big D, what do we have coming up next week?
Gene, next week, 2 ambitious friends start out side by side, convinced they're both headed for the top. But they start to differ in direction. One plays the long game with integrity, while the other bends the rules to win fast. What starts out as loyalty turns into rivalry, forcing them to confront what success is really worth. Next week, we're watching a story of ambition, corruption, and how far someone will take things to get ahead. Came out in 91, had a budget of $20 million, only made about 1.5 back, no major awards. So I do not remember this one.
I've never seen it.
I thought this was the story of Sean Penn being a racist cop in LA, but that was a different movie.
Different movie, similar title, yeah. And Chris, thank you for commissioning this one, because I am on a mission to see every John Cusack movie ever made before I croak. So this gets me one step closer. It's like playing McDonald's Monopoly. Well, thank you, Chris, for the upcoming commission and for commissioning The Way of the Gun. Thank you to all the commissioners who make this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. You can email us, host@shatpod.com. Support the podcast by buying our merch or commissioning your own movie. You can find all that information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV. We review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all that information on our website, shatpod.com/TV, wherever fine podcasts be found. including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, and if you stop at Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. It helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-host, Big D, I'm Gene Lyons. Join us next time for the following movie.
2, 1. You don't have to lie to me. What if I fall in love with you?
Peter, I loved him.
What's the matter? Not good enough?
Didn't mean to hurt you.
Never meant to hurt you. I am sorry that you got hurt.
It was the dawn of a new era, of a friendship
Just a day, maybe on your car, farmer, but I'm not in the heart.
that began by accident.
First you go to law school, then you turn into a sleaze bag with no regard for the truth.
Tim Garrity was born with all the advantages.
Hello, handsome.
Hello, beautiful.
I got a great idea. Come up here New Year's Eve. You sure it's not too private a thing?
Peter Burton would do anything to get them.
It's like the National Review come to life, man.
Are you impressed by that?
Yes, I am. They say great men are embraced by thousands of strangers. I want to be great. We may not always get what we want, just as we don't get what we deserve. Hey. I don't think any of those little looks you've been dealing me add up to you actually doing anything.
You're wrong.
Each made a choice.
I resolved to be elected to Congress within 10 years.
You got some way to cure this country's ills nobody's thought of?
One is looking for power.
I feel my time is now.
I wanted you to be in a position to do us a favor. Now you are.
I've been with Diana. I'm going to ask her to marry me.
So that's your own relationship with Styles. You're marrying his daughter.
Going out and introduce you, and then our deal is done.
The moves on this kid.
It's no move, that's a crime.
The other is looking for justice.
Did you blackmail the senator? Tim, I played hardball, yeah, but I never threatened to use it. Come on.
He's tied into racketeering, bribery.
I'm just doing my best to get us both where we want to be.
You think he set you up?
He's a crook. It's a brand new day in America, man. Don't get caught.
Let me go after him. Tim, you're not FBI. You're a trial lawyer.
He trusts me.
What are you doing with him?
I am helping out an old friend.
There's a microcassette recorder sewn into the shoulder pad.
What's with all these questions?
Tell me this isn't about me coming out ahead of you.
John Cusack, James Spader. True Colors.